If everyone would have a seat, let's get started. Members are in other committees. They'll be here shortly, but we recess so we have the ability to start hearing some important legislation. And I think first that would include Senate Bill 1550 by Senator Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Am I recognized?
Ma'am?
Am I recognized?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And members, under current law, airports are authorized to employ general security personnel, including non-commissioned peace officers. However, statute is not clear as to whether airport governing boards have this authority. Senate Bill 1550 clarifies this statute by clearly stating that airport governing boards, including a joint airport board, are authorized to appoint commissioned peace officers with the same privileges of all other DPS commissioned peace officers. The security of millions of travelers and commuters at Texas airports is of the utmost importance. Senate Bill 1550 will help keep our airports safe. I have an excellent witness here from DFW Airport, Chief Taylor, and that is what the bill does.
Thank you,
Mr. Chairman.
Madam Chair. Does anyone have any questions? If not, John Taylor with DFW. And we're going to restrict, we have a long agenda, so we're going to try to restrict testimony to 2 minutes.
I bet he can do it in one.
Well, you need to tell your witness that.
I did.
Chief, give us your name and who you represent.
Mr. Chair, John Taylor, I'm the Chief of Police at DFW Airport.
How many officers you got?
We have 215 commissioned and total with civilian staff, about 260.
Do they have any restrictions on how far away from the airport they can patrol?
We have our boundaries within the airport. It's unclear with current state law right now where our boundaries stop.
Really?
That's what we're trying to fix today.
Yeah. The reason I ask, Houston has about 70 agencies within the city limits. You know, HISD has 300, and they pretty much restricted to the campuses. I guess that's their training. But I've just kind of had a vision. What if we allowed them to go in the surrounding neighborhood? We might have a little more protection. But that's another discussion for another day, but I was using you as kind of as a resource for some of my ideas.
I completely agree with what you said, and this is really for our police officers as well. It's the same example in the Houston metro area. The more police officers, in my opinion, the safer our communities are, and when they travel carrying their weapons, being able to enforce the laws that they see.
Just that black and white driving through the neighborhood might be a pretty good tool.
Yes, sir.
And I just think before you know it, if you're talking about the school district, the metro police, the medical center police, before you know it, you could, if done properly, you could have a layer upon layer of law enforcement bound to run the bad guys to another city. We'll give them a bus ticket too, by the way. You've stated your name. Tell us why you need this legislation.
So Texas law recognizes two types of airport police personnel as peace officers under state law. Those commissioned by a city or those commissioned by other political subdivisions. The DFW Airport Board is neither a city nor a political subdivision, but it commissions 215 police officers who should be recognized as peace officers under state law. This bill addresses this issue by consolidating two subsections into one and recognizing all airport police as police officers if they are commissioned under Transportation Code Chapter 23. Today, the law denies DFW Airport police officers some of the same benefits and privileges as other commissioned peace officers. For instance, it is unclear whether DFW Airport peace officers must give bonds and take oaths, or only if required by the airport governing body. This bill clarifies the issue by eliminating bond requirements and simply requiring oaths like other commissioned police officers in Texas. This bill treats the fine men and women of DFW Airport Police the same as our peers in local municipalities across the state. For these reasons, I would request your support of this bill. Available for questions.
Very good. Thank you.
That was 49 seconds.
Yes.
Yeah, I took more time than you did. Thank you for being here. Chris Jones, Cabana Law Enforcement of Texas, is in support, does not wish to testify. T.J. Patterson, Fort Worth City, is in support. Paige Williams, Dallas County District Attorney's Office, is in support. Ray Hunt, Houston Police Officers Union, is in support. David Sinclair, Game Warden and Peace Officers of Texas in support. Anyone else would like to testify for or against Senate Bill 1550? Not public testimony is closed. Senator Nelson, we're fixing to call the roll and vote your bill probably on local consent. If that's
I am most grateful to the chairman's wisdom and to the entire committee. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee
Well,
members.
It's nice to have a chairman of finance
Thank you.
in our committee.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
Good legislation. Giovanna, if you'll call the roll, we'll go to work.
Senator Whitmire,
Present.
Senator Huffman, Senator Betancourt,
Present.
Senator Birdwell,
Present.
Senator Hinojosa, Senator Miles.
There's 4 members present, establishing a quorum. Senator Huffman moves that Senate Bill 1550 be reported back to full Senate with a favorable recommendation. Clerk, call the roll.
Senator Whitmire,
Yes.
Senator Huffman,
Yes.
Senator Betancourt,
Aye.
Senator Birdwell.
Present.
Four ayes. 4 ayes, no nays. Senate Bill 1550 supported back to full Senate with a favorable recommendation. Senator Huffman moves it certified for local and consent. Is there objection? Chair hears none, so granted. Senator Perry, Senate Bill 906.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. Texas Civil Commitment Office, TCCO, provides treatment and supervision to civilly committed sexual violent predators. TCCO has encountered several administrative challenges that regularly hinder their treatment programs. Currently, sex offenders who are released from prison and have been civilly committed are still required to appear in person to register as sex offenders. Senate Bill 906 would allow TCCO to register for the client on their behalf instead of having to transport the client so that they can register as a sex offender in person as the law currently requires. This bill also would allow TCCO to issue an emergency detention order for a person who is newly committed and is not in prison, but rather has been released on parole or mandatory supervision. This would allow TCCO to bring that person into custody. TCCO clients are also required to reimburse the state for the cost of their treatment. However, clients are not required to provide their financial information to TCCO. SB 906 would require clients to provide TCCO with their financial information. Mr. Chairman, there is a committee sub. All the committee sub does is a ledge council version that was filed. There is no substantive changes, corrects that.
Chair lays out committee substitute. Is there opposition to the adoption? Chair is none. And Senator Perry explained his substitute. We have a couple of cards. Marcia McLean is a resource witness with Texas Civil Commitment Office. And our friend Thomas Parkinson from San Antonio is in support. Does not wish to testify. Anyone else for or against committee substitute for Senate Bill 906? If not, public testimony is closed. Senator Huffman moves that Senate Bill 906 be reported, committee substitute for Senate Bill 906 be reported back to full Senate. Clerk, call the roll.
Senator Whitmire,
Yes.
Senator Huffman,
Aye.
Senator Betancourt,
Aye.
Senator Birdwell.
There being 4 ayes, committee substitute for 906 report back to full Senate. Senator Huffman moves it be certified for local and consent. Is there objection? Chair is none, so granted.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Senator Seliger on Senate Bill 922.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. As everyone's aware, many professions require fingerprint background checks in order to receive a license, and they should. Additionally, for those of us wanting license to carry, a fingerprint background check is needed. Currently, the Department of Public Safety uses a contractor for statewide fingerprinting needs and is required to serve the whole state and have locations within 25 miles of 90% of the population and within 50 miles for the remaining 10%. There is no backup service available to provide this process if a location closes. Across the state, and given that there are complications with COVID, but across the state there were closures, a complete lack of service provided in the required mile radius, and still today, there's a chronic issue of persons showing up for appointments and the fingerprinting offices being closed. As many of you undoubtedly experienced last year as we were trying to keep essential services running, such as daycares, the required fingerprint appointments for these very needed and necessary vacant positions were hard to come by. Applicants in the Panhandle routinely had to drive 2 hours and up to 120 miles for an appointment, and even then, had to wait up to 6 weeks for an opening. Even when they'd sometimes arrive and find the office closed in the Permian Basin in Midland County, the office completely closed, left local child care centers unable to fill positions needed for healthcare workers and first responders to return to work. And the Panhandle child care directors around the Amarillo area were so desperate for fingerprint appointments, they created a local group which would alert one another when a fingerprint location was being closed or open because they were not properly given notice. To make matters worse, Amarillo saw a fingerprint location permanently closed with no warning to DPS or local entities. When we called the DPS, complained about the job being done, we were instructed to call the lobbyist for the vendor, to which I take great exception and would not do under any circumstance. I believe we have a fiscal note that is basically designed to get DPS off the hook and lacks legitimacy because it duplicates positions that are already there.
Okay, we have a witness, Michelle Ferris, Texas Department of Public Safety, is a resource witness. If there's any questions. And Chad Wadsworth has written testimony representing Ademia Program Director. Says
Chairman?
neutral.
I've got a question for the
DPS.
witness.
Ms. Ferris, if you would come forward, state your name, and who you represent.
Good morning, I'm Michelle Ferris. I'm with the Chief at the Department of Public Safety.
Ms. Harris, I was going to ask Senator Seliger about the fiscal note because it seemed odd, but he obviously anticipated the question. Can you tell me why we have this level of fiscal note on a bill like this?
Sure. So currently, we only have one position that audits the locations, the actual physical locations across the state, and there are over 100 locations throughout the state. So we're only asking for 4 individuals that would travel. There's additional requirements in this bill for the contract, so we're asking for those additional people to also help with the monitoring of contract compliance.
So you don't have any other productivity, gain from some other group that's closely associated in this area that could be used for this?
So currently have one contract monitor that oversees all of the contracts within my division. And I do have auditors and trainers, but they are specifically there to audit on policy. So as for access, use, dissemination, storage, their purpose is to train using entities for that purpose, not for contract compliance. So to ensure that the vendor notices public within 45 days if a location closes, or to make sure that a mobile unit is deployed.
And it would seem a bit odd that Senator Seliger was sent to a lobbyist for a vendor.
That is odd to me as well. I was not aware of that.
Is that your policy?
No, sir.
Send people to lobbyists?
No, sir. Not at all.
DPS already receives daily.
Senator
weekly-
Seliger, you're recognized.
I yield to Senator Seliger.
DPS already receives daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly detailed data from the vendor and already conducts on-site audits around the state. And yet you just said you can't properly do the audits you're supposed to do now.
There's over 13,000 entities that utilize our services, so that is correct. We currently cannot audit within a 3-year period of time all of those entities with approximately 7 to 10 people.
So did your audits reveal the under-delivery of service in all these areas?
So I only have one auditor that audits the location and a team of 2 to 3 individuals that audit this contract or monitor this contract.
The 45-day notice is for permanent closures, which aligns with what the contractor requests of its own vendors.
Mm-hmm.
Do you agree that if the contractor thinks this is reasonable for their own franchise vendors, it would only make sense that this requirement would also be reasonable for other locations too?
Sure, we don't have a problem.
But it's not being done.
It's not in our contract currently. So there's no requirement from the state for the vendor to provide that notice to the public other than the individuals that are affected by a closure. So individuals that are affected by a closure are noticed. and they're rescheduled, and the $10 fee that they would be charged is waived.
Do you understand that when somebody shows up at some place and has not been notified as a closure and drives a long way to get there, that it can create a problem?
Yes, sir.
Did you know about the problem?
We were aware during COVID that several locations were closing.
And what did you do about it?
We were trying to deploy RVs, or the vendor had RV or mobile deployments throughout the state. So we were putting them to where the highest demand was. So we coordinated with HHSC and other state stakeholders that had large populations that needed to be printed. And so we deployed to Dallas several times, to Houston and San Antonio.
This information DPS provided shows that on-site audits are already conducted around the state. But you seem to be telling us you don't have the people to do those audits. Are they really being done?
Yes, they are
By
being
who?
done. So I have a team of 7 to 10 auditors that audit on program compliance. So it's when they're utilizing the secure website, these entities are audited. There's about 13,000 that currently utilize the secure website, and they're audited on their use, the dissemination of that data, the storage, and all of the, any destruction of the data as well. So they're audited on that program side.
And so the availability of this service is not part of that audit? I mean, if the people are supposed to be where they're supposed to be is not part of that audit?
Not by that team, no, sir. So I have one auditor that audits the locations themselves, and a handful, 2 to 3 individuals that actually go after the contract itself as it's currently written.
The provision that allows you to consider a second vendor if you find the current vendor is performing unsatisfactory is permissive.
Yes.
Why did you include that permissive provision as a mandatory expense on your fiscal note?
So that was an oversight on my staff's side. So it would not be simply because we cannot have a second vendor to provide statewide coverage. So we can't have 2 at the same time providing statewide coverage.
So it never should have been on the fiscal note.
That's correct.
Do you believe it will be found the contracted vendor is not fulfilling its obligations?
I believe it will be found that they are lacking, that there should be there's more work to be done. However, there were circumstances throughout 2020 that were difficult for them to overcome.
What do you plan to do about it now?
So all we can do is continue to hold them to the tenets of the contract. So within 5 days of the location closure, they're required to put in a mobile location.
Are they doing that now?
They've had some difficulty simply because there were so many closures due to COVID that they couldn't deploy all of those resources throughout the state. So they had to hit the locations with the highest demand.
You have remedy provisions in the current contract. Have those remedy provisions been put in effect in any case?
We utilize the contract to the fullest extent, yes, sir.
No, you don't. You're not providing the services.
As far as you're talking the remedies on our side, that's what we employ.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
thank you. This is all completely unsatisfactory. And the performance so far has been poor, and I think the fiscal note exists in this form, so DPS doesn't have to do what they're supposed to do, and I take great exception to it. I don't know that this is just a rural problem, but it's a real rural problem.
I would suggest if the bill leaves the committee, you work with the administration out at DPS on a proper fiscal note before you take it to the floor if you want to resolve that issue. But I think we do recognize your area. Quite frankly, other areas are underserved. In fact, you have DPS and you say chief of
The Crime Records Division.
Of what?
The Crime Records Division.
Okay. And another thing I wrote down, you said you have a contract monitor. Is that a DPS employee?
Yes,
And that's a full-time job?
yes. We have several system contracts. My group oversees the computerized criminal history database,
Sure.
the mobile biometric.
What's a contract monitor do when he or she shows up at work in the morning? I just can't imagine sitting there all day, every day, 365, monitoring contracts.
So they're monitoring, so it's from the entire life cycle of the contract. So from solicitation to award through all deliverables, all change orders, to payment.
So when they get that info, what do they do with it?
When they get, I'm sorry?
When they get through monitoring a contract or a vendor, what do they do with it?
It's to the
They
retention.
turn it over to you, I assume.
Or to our procurement and contracts division, yes.
Yeah.
Does that monitor performance of the contract? Have you received any information about these deficiencies?
We do reporting on the contract, yes. And so, yes, we know there was an issue in 2020, but a lot of it was due to the challenges of COVID.
Yeah, it is about.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members.
Thank you. Senator Miles present. Senator Birdwell?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ma'am, did any of the services in this contract, because it speaks of checks for employees and licensing agencies, did this contract have any impact on driver's license offices?
So we co-locate in some, this vendor co-locates in some driver's license offices, yes.
Were any of the driver's license offices impacted by the subpar performance of the vendor?
No,
So it did not impact anybody's ability to go get a driver's license in a timely manner, with notification if there's a closure. What I'm trying to do is separate the driver's license function from other licensing. Because, Mr. Chairman, while this committee doesn't have purview of it at this moment, and we'll probably have to deal with it next session, in sunset last session, we recommended a study, and the study that came back from the UT Transportation said that we ought to separate the driver's license function as a standalone agency.
Yeah.
So what I'm seeking to do is make sure that driver's license, as it stands right now, has not been impacted by this subpar performance, because we specifically made sure we didn't close the rural driver's license offices in the 2019 session. So I share Senator Seliger's concern with the service rendered to rural Texas.
Keep the process.
sure. So just to clarify, this vendor operates separately from the driver's license office. So even though they may be co-located in the same building, it's a separation of duties.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Huffman?
Just a couple of questions. So
I gotta keep going.
it appears that Senator Seliger is trying to get more access for his constituents for this service. I mean, that's the bottom line, correct?
We're trying to just get that access prescribed for.
Right. And clearly, it's a service that DPS needs to provide to the citizens of Texas. So is DPS willing to work with the legislature to make sure that our constituents have this service as they need it? I
Absolutely.
think that's the bottom line.
Yeah,
of this.
absolutely.
So can you come up with a fiscal note that is realistic? I understand you can't do this if you don't have enough employees. That makes sense to me. And I agree with Senator Seliger that this is a service that the state needs to provide. So I think we just need to come together and make sure we have the right number. And it seems like this is kind of should be a simple solution. So can you make sure that we have the numbers, Senator Seliger has the numbers that he needs, and through the finance process, through the work groups and so forth, that we can try to get the money that we need to provide these services?
Yeah,
Fair enough?
absolutely. We'd be happy to work
Yeah.
with any office.
Yeah, and as far as the contract monitor, if I recall, doesn't the state law require that you continue to monitor those contracts? I think some of the big contract reforms that we had done, so that's very standard for you we want you to do.
Have employed, yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
Anyone else like to testify for or against committee substitute? Senate Bill 922, no substitute. What's the will of the committee? You want to keep the process going? Want to move it out? Senator Birdwell moves that Senate Bill 922 be reported back to full Senate with a favorable recommendation. Clerk call the roll.
Senator Whitmire?
Yes.
Senator Huffman? Senator Betancourt? Senator Birdwell? Senator Miles?
How many of us are there? 5 of us? 5 ayes, no nays. Senate Bill 922 is reported back to full Senate with a favorable recommendation. To the floor, yeah, sure. I think it's my first hearing. Senator Hall. Wes, I'm managing my time, and you want to do your short one and then get to your long one in about an hour? Sir?
That's fine, because I've got some other committees to go to also. That's fine.
Senator Hall, let me take care of Wes. You want to do your shorter bill versus your longer bill?
Whatever, that's fine, as long as we can get to the.
Let me get Senator Hall, and then we'll get back and try to do both of your bills to accommodate your schedule. Senator Hall on Senate Bill 710. Nathan,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'll be very quick with this.
where's Nathan?
Mr. Chairman and members, this is a sunset bill for jail standards. The Texas Commission on Jail Standards sets and enforces minimum standards to help ensure facilities are safe and secure regardless of their varying sizes, operations, and available resources. This bill continues the Texas Commission on Jail Standards for 12 years until 2033 and implements the Sunset Commission's recommendations for the agency. It's the agency's standards development process to eliminate overly vague and stagnant minimum standards. It updates the agency standards. It improves inspections and enforcement procedures to mitigate risk in jail more efficiently and effectively by eliminating the requirement for annual jail inspections and instead requires the agency to prioritize inspections based on jail's relative risk level. It updates complaint processes to align with best practices and strengthens the agency's use of data to improve jail operations and transparency. Lastly, it clarifies that law enforcement agencies, once appointed by the Commission on Jail Standards, must conduct investigations of inmates' deaths in jail custody unless they can provide evidence of a conflict of interest that cannot be mitigated. Mr. Chairman, I do have a committee substitute.
Chair lays out committee substitute for Senate Bill 710 recognized. Is there objection to the adoption? Chair is none.
Okay.
Senator Hall.
Mr. Chairman, the committee substitute for Senate Bill 710 ensures that only the agency and not its statutes is subject to abolishment. And we do have a resource witness, if necessary, from Sunset.
Very good. Senator Brandon Wood, the Director of Jail Standards, is available to answer questions. Rachel Gandy with Sunset Advisory Commission is also President's resource. Anyone else present would like to testify on committee substitute for Senate Bill 710? If not, public testimony is closed. Senator Bentoncourt moves that committee substitute for Senate Bill 710 be reported back to full Senate with a favorable recommendation. Clerk call the roll.
Senator Whitmire?
Yes.
Senator Huffman?
Aye.
Senator Betancourt? Senator Birdwell?
4 ayes, no nays. Committee substitute for Senate Bill 710 is reported back to the full Senate with a favorable recommendation. You want to put it on the locals? Senator Birdwell moves that committee substitute for Senate Bill 710 be recertified for local and consent. Is there objection? Chair is none so granted. And Brandon does, and his organization does a fine job.
Yes, sir.
I call them routinely about matters, and they do a great job.
They did. And thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that is a
Nice to have
personal
a good
fastest
agency
move
come
for a
through.
bill through the committee that I have had since I've been here. Thank you, sir. Thank you, members.
We just say brag on me. Senator Johnson, how long are you going to,
About a minute.
how long?
About a minute.
Really?
I can beat Hall.
Senator Johnson for 1 minute, Senate Bill. Senate Bill 181.
Members, I laid out Senate Bill 181 last week. I've been working with members of this committee to modify it. As filed last week, Senate Bill 181 leaves it to judges to determine whether or not to suspend an individual's license upon a drug conviction related to a federal program that's been imposed upon the states, which we would like to pull out of. I want to withdraw my previous committee substitute and lay out the new substitute.
All right.
I got 30 seconds.
Okay. Why don't we lay out, I've never heard of that one. Senator Johnson lays out committee substitute for Senate Bill 181.
Thank you,
And
Mr.
is there
Chairman.
objection to the adoption? No. That's the bill before us now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. The committee substitute makes license suspension discretionary, but only for misdemeanor drug defendants who have no prior conviction in the past 36 months. All other convictions, including felonies, federal offenses, and misdemeanors with prior convictions, will still result in a mandatory suspension under this bill. 46 other states have exited this federal mandate. With the passage of Senate Bill 181 will be the 47th. This committee substitute greatly narrows the scope of the bill. The change in this bill will still be a big improvement from current law. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members.
Okay, any questions on committee substitute for Senate Bill 181? And I trust you've worked the committee.
We have, Mr. Chairman, yes.
Senator Birdwell moves that committee substitute for Senate Bill 181 be reported back to full Senate with a favorable recommendation. Clerk, call the roll.
Mr. Chairman, can we hold on that for a second?
Absolutely. So,
All right.
you okay?
I need to check.
You want to leave it pending?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
We don't have the votes right now. Let's, I'll leave it pending and we'll make a determination later today or certainly next week. Okay, if no other persons on some committee substitute for Senate Bill 181, it'd be left pending. Okay, Senator, any outside? Senator West, why don't we do Senate Bill 112?
That's pending.
I'm working off the sheet. 109.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. During the 2017 legislative session, the Dallas County District Attorney's Office, the Dallas County District Attorney's Office, and other District Attorney's Office began to focus on crimes that take advantage of the exploited seniors, the disabled, and other vulnerable citizens with the passage of Senate Bill 998 that extended the statute of limitation on offenses of this kind for 3 to 7 years. The work to protect seniors and others who may be of diminished capacity continues this session with Senate Bill 109. According to the Dallas County District Attorney's Office, across the country, on an average, about $36 billion a year is lost by seniors to various forms of financial abuse. Senate Bill 109 would amend the Texas Penal Code, Section 32.46, that pertains to securing and execution of documents by deception. The new language amends by making a transaction illegal if it is entered into without the buyer's customer's effective consent. For brevity, Mr. Chair, I'll end there because we have a resource from the DA's office.
Yeah, Melissa Myers has signed up, Dallas District Attorney's Office. Let the show Senator Hinojosa the president. State your name and who you represent and give us about 2 minutes or so of your views.
My name is Melissa Myers, and I'm a prosecutor at the Dallas County District Attorney's Office. I'm the chief prosecutor of the Specialized Crime Division, which handles white-collar crimes and specifically financial crimes against elderly and disabled individuals. I want to thank you for the time to testify today, and Senator West, for bringing the bill to committee. The statute as currently written does not protect those with diminished capacity. In order to be deceived, you have to be operating off of deceptive conduct, and those with diminished capacity cannot operate or follow those false words or conduct that lead to the deception, and medical experts will testify to this. Therefore, the bill as currently written protects those who can articulate or describe the deception, but not those with diminished capacity who may have signed a document without having any clue what it was. Powers of attorney are a good example of this, and something that does affect the elderly population quite often, and definitely affects their pecuniary interest, which is what this bill targets. So in 2012, my office prosecuted a case that involved an elderly woman. She lived on a very well-known historic street in Dallas. Her house had become run down, but it was the most important thing in her life was that house. She was befriended by two middle-aged men who were unrelated to her, who basically had the intention of taking the house from her. This woman had only one daughter. And over time, they isolated her, they alienated her from her family. and they exerted undue influence on her. So at the age of 88, she fell, she hit her head. She was taken to the hospital where a medical or a doctor basically said that she no longer had the legal capacity to make decisions for herself. After that, these two men obtained a power of attorney for her. They continued to isolate her from her family. They took her back to the house rather than.
What was their contact with her
I'm
originally?
sorry.
What was their contact with her?
They just befriended her. They were antique dealers that knew where she lived. They had met her at a party, and over time built up
And
a
that was their
relationship with her.
intent? That was their intent, you believe?
Yes.
Okay, I missed that part of the story.
Yeah. They told her that her lone daughter, her sole daughter, was trying to put her in a nursing home so that she could obtain the house and sell it for profit. And with her mental status, that was something that she started to believe over the
Susceptible
years.
to it, sure, okay.
Correct. And so after this injury to her head, instead of taking her to a medical facility, because they had that power of attorney, they took her back to her home. They hired a caretaker with no medical experience or qualifications and basically hid her in that home away from her family until she had a massive stroke. And at that time, instead of calling 911, their first call was to their attorney, telling him to go meet them at the hospital, where they could then execute a will. So that case was ultimately charged as an attempted theft. That was based on the filing of the will itself. And what we are trying to do is make the first document, the power of attorney, which does affect someone's pecuniary interest, but doesn't necessarily rise to the level of theft or misappropriation without an additional action. But if you look at this example, this woman lived for several weeks or months based on that power of attorney, kind of against her best interest, against what her true wishes would be or the wishes of her family that really cared for her, and was manipulated by these two gentlemen.
Do you think that happens a lot?
I do. I mean, maybe not this particular fact situation, but yes, I think elderly people are often.
Sure, often by their relatives.
Correct.
Okay, thank you for being here. Jimmy Rodriguez, San Antonio Police Officer Association is in support. Mitch Landry, Texas Municipal Police Association is in support. Paige Williams, Dallas County District Attorney's Office is in support. Philip Furrow, District Attorney's Office, 106th District. Collins Craig, Houston Police Department in support. Frederick Frazier, Dallas Police Association, FAR. And I think that's it. Anybody else would like to testify before it gets Senate Bill 109? If not, public testimony is closed. Senator Birdwell moves that Senate Bill 109 be reported back to full Senate. Favorable. Clerk, call the roll.
Senator Whitmire,
Yes.
Senator Huffman, Senator Hinojosa, Senator Betancourt, Senator Birdwell.
There being 5 ayes, no nays, Senate Bill 109 is reported back to full Senate with favorable recommendation. Senator Birdwell moves it be certified for local and consent. Is there objection? Chair is none, so granted. Senator West on Senate Bill 1544.
Mr. Chairman and members, thank you very much. And I'm going to try not to take a bunch of time with the committee today because there's still some work that needs to be done on this particular bill.
Okay, Dane.
The use of no-knock warrants by law enforcement was not one to have piqued the public interest until the inexplicable death of Breonna Taylor in Louisville, Kentucky. Much closer to home, there were mistakes where were also made in execution of a no-knock warrant in January 2019 in Houston. No-knock warrants are, Texas is among the 15 states that do not have a statewide policy on the use of no-knock warrants. And so this particular bill deals with the issues of no-knock warrants. You will have a committee substitute that comes before you, but there's still work that needs to be done on the committee substitute also.
Let's adopt the current substitute.
I'd ask that it not be adopted because we're going to be working on another committee substitute with law enforcement.
So you're laying out your original bill, but you can
Right.
You've got one in front of us if you want to speak to it.
Right, and just to kind of give you kind of an update on terms of the committee substitute. And you will hear from various law enforcement agencies this morning, representative of law enforcement agencies, that will be neutral on the bill, that will tell the committee that we're working together. We resolve most of the issues, but there still needs to be some things that need to be resolved. And so that's what we'll do. The particular bill itself puts in place who would be responsible for being able to authorize a warrant, a no-knock warrant. We've got to deal with issues concerning rural areas, and I think we'll have legislation that will, or language that will deal with issues concerning rural areas. In terms of the requirements concerning the application, we have that in there also. There's an issue concerning making certain that in the warrant that the accused is frequently present at the building or place and has been identified being present within the last 24 hours before the warrant is in fact executed. There was some language that was put in there in the bill that said that that the warrant could not be executed no earlier than 24 hours after the complaint is presented. That language is coming out. It should not have been in the bill in the first place.
Do you speak to what magistrate, what level can give a warrant?
Well, right now,
Houston, I understand it can be municipal.
right. What we
So I just see a issue, and it's been raised back home. You know, you got a municipal court, municipal police department. Do you need maybe a greater third party to review it?
Well, what you need is someone with a legal background. And so what we're saying is that it would be a county judge or a district judge that would review it and provide for it. Or if we need, and we're working with HPD and others, someone with a legal background that understands the requirements. That's what we're going after.
Yeah, proper training.
Correct. Okay. And as it relates to the search warrant, we want to make certain that there's officers are in uniform that are clearly identified to being peace officers. Because we've had issues where warrants are being executed and officers aren't in uniform or some clearly identifying clothing that identifies them as police officers executing the warrant. And as it relates to body cameras, and body cameras, as you well know, have been used in a multitude of cases that provide additional information for prosecution. So what we have here is the requirement that the body cameras be equipped with a body camera, and that the body cameras be activated prior to the execution of the warrant. And they're not deactivated until, frankly, the search has been completed. And so we're working with law enforcement on additional language concerning that to make certain that the language that we have in the bill itself is operational.
Very good. You through?
Yes.
Any questions about committee members? We have a couple of witnesses signed up. Taylor Huey. Miss Huey, you want to come state your name and who you represent?
Hi, David Meyer. Thank you,
Morning.
members of the committee, for having me.
You have about 2 minutes or so. State your name and who you represent.
My name is Taylor Huey, and I'm here representing myself, and I will be testifying in support of SB474.
Very good.
I would like to first thank Senator West for authoring this bill and its focus on improving the deliverance of criminal justice in our great state. As a Dallas native, we are proud to have you represent our county, especially in moments such as this. Your input adds a powerful perspective to this issue that must be addressed for our democracy's future. Everyday ordinary citizens are startled out of their sleep by the sound, or worse, the feel of gunshots in their home. Time, therefore, is of the essence and must be well spent working to end such tragedies, not just mourn them. And that, esteemed committee members, is why I am incredibly grateful to have the opportunity to spend my time with you today, highlighting the critical facets of this bill. This bill comes on the heels of a country reeling from the preventable deaths of thousands of people at the hands of law enforcement. It works to prevent further untimely deaths of vibrant members of our community like Breonna Taylor and Atiana Jefferson. Breonna Taylor, for those who don't know, proudly served her community as an EMT. Atiana Jefferson was a loving aunt and daughter who moved to Fort Worth to help care for her ailing mother while saving up to go to medical school. Unfortunately, we can no longer discuss the incredible person that Breonna Taylor is but was, nor of the bright future Atiana Jefferson will have but can't. And that is because both of these women on a day such as this one were ambushed in their homes and fatally killed without cause. These two hard-working women are irreplaceable, and their lives could have quite possibly been saved by the very bill you see before you now. SB 1544 places essential guardrails on the use of no-knock warrants, which clearly communicate to all facets of our criminal justice system the heightened level of care that must be recognized when entering homes under such precarious circumstances. SB 1544 also requires each officer to be equipped with activated body camera for executing a warrant and keep this camera on until the execution is complete, ensuring that officers comply with all laws in accordance with no-knock warrants or face corresponding consequences. At the core of this bill reaffirms that the focus in these instances is to minimize the risk of harm and preserve the life of our fellow Texans, as must always be the case. Thank you all for your time, and I will gladly answer any questions from the committee at this time.
Very good. Any questions? Doesn't appear to be any. Thank you for being here.
Great. Thank you for having me.
Good luck. T.J. Patterson, City of Fort Worth, in support. Thomas Parkinson, San Antonio, self is in support, no testimony. Josh Houston, Texas Impact is in support, no testimony. Jimmy Rodriguez, San Antonio Police Officer Association is in opposition, does not wish to testify. Okie dokie. Mitch Landry, Texas Municipal Police Association is neutral. Huh? Oh, Mitch wants to testify. I oversaw that. Mitch, come down. State your name and who you represent.
Chairman, members, Mitch Landry, Texas Municipal Police Association, testifying on the bill. Visiting with Senator West yesterday, wanted to make sure that you knew that we have been working with him and the staff. They have addressed issues. I will not go into the issues that we have. Senator West covered them earlier, but we continue. He assured us that we will be meeting within the next couple of days to try to clear these up.
Within the next 24 hours.
Very good. And I was going to wrap up this bill by admonishing all the stakeholders to stay moving forward. This is the legislative process, and hopefully everyone recognizes that it's something that can be improved. It's documented tragedies, so we have a short time frame, obviously, so.
Absolutely. And just so you know, we've worked on it, worked with Kelvin on Sunday afternoon.
Sure,
working through everything, so.
Well, if everyone will work in good faith, I think a good bill can be drafted and substitute. So thanks for being here. Philip Furlow would like to testify. 106th Judicial District. State your name and who you represent.
Mr. Bass.
Thank you, Senator.
Where's 106th District? I don't know.
It's out where the sand blows and the tumbleweeds roam, up between Lubbock and Midland. We've got 4 counties out there.
I'm sorry.
I'm 4th generation. It's a curse that we've lived with a long time.
Yeah, go ahead.
First of all, we want to thank Senator West for working with us to address some of the concerns we have about the bill as it relates to rural areas. The 106th Judicial District covers 4,200 square miles in 4 counties. We have 1 district judge, and some district judges do not like to accept electronic warrants and things of that nature. They want the officer there in person and want to be able to go through it. My largest populated city is 80 miles from the district judge. So one of the things that we had talked about, I think in Code of Criminal Procedure 1802, there's an alternative provision that if a district judge is not in the county, then you start working down a list as to who can sign those warrants. And to be perfectly honest with you, in those counties, there's 1 judge with a law degree, and that's the district judge, and sometimes they're an hour and a half away. And so under 1802...
I don't think people recognize how large and diverse our state is until you hear that, because a lot of times people are proposing statutes, whether it's bail bond reform, et cetera, And, to require an attorney to only do certain functions. In some counties, we don't have an attorney.
Correct, Your Honor, Senator Whitmire. We,
It's okay.
and so
And
up there.
you just put a face on it so well, I mean.
We do, and Senator West has offered to work with us regarding some of those issues.
Yes, sir.
There's 4 county districts, there's 5 county districts in the Panhandle. Also, the 24-hour waiting period, which Senator West has already talked about. These are immediate issues that we can't have a 24-hour waiting. Once we get that warrant signed, we really need to be able to go execute it. So, again, we thank Senator West for working with us.
Who serves most of the warrants in a rural area like that? The sheriff's office?
Sometimes it's the Rangers with the task force. Sometimes it's the sheriff's office. Sometimes it's a combination thereof.
I'll be darned.
So
Mostly
it's
drug?
many times a joint effort.
Mostly drug? Yeah.
Oftentimes it's drugs. Majority, but sometimes it's a murder suspect. Sometimes
human
it's,
trafficking, whatnot.
sexual assault of a child. Yes.
Okay.
All the above.
Very good. Anything? Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Good perspective. Scotty Shiver, Texas Department of Public Safety, is present. Would like to testify. State your name and who you represent. You're signed up as neutral.
Yes, sir. Scotty Shiver with the Texas Rangers. And I spoke with several of the other TMPA and other guys earlier. It sounds like Senator West is working with some of those guys, changing some of the things in here. All I'll say is no-knock warrants are important at times. And they do protect officers and the general public and the suspects. So it doesn't have to be used on every warrant, obviously, but they are important for officer safety and to get into a structure very quickly.
Very good. I think we recognize it's a tool.
Yes, sir.
But probably needs, like most things, to be reviewed and hopefully improved upon.
Agreed, sir.
So your input's important. Thank you, Ms. Shiver.
Yes, sir.
Ray Hunt, Houston Police Officers Union is neutral, no testimony. Frederick Frazier, Dallas, neutral with no testimony at this time. So, anyone else present would like to testify for or against Senate Bill 1544? Senator West.
Mr. Chairman, for the witnesses that are here that we have spoken with, we're planning a meeting this morning at 11 o'clock if possible, and Kelvin will let you know where it is so we can sit down and go through these issues. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Very good, Senator West. We wish you well. Public testimony is closed at this time on Senate Bill 1544. What's bothering you? You okay? Very good. So Birdwell, we're moving right along. Senator Lucio. Senator Lucio? Y'all notice we're getting everybody's bill but mine. I know. This goes with the territory. State we know who you are.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members. Good
Senator
morning,
Lucio,
all.
474.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for having me this morning. Currently, when police officers encounter unsafe living conditions for dogs, they are not able to take action. If they see a dog chained and unsafe, they must provide the owner 24 hours to stop breaking the law, thus removing any immediate enforcement. Not only do current regulations allow for unsafe situations for dogs, it creates unsafe situations in our neighborhoods. No neighbor or family wants to live next to an aggressive chained-up dog. Senate Bill 474 creates a basic standard for living for dogs, as well as giving law enforcement a mechanism to ensure regulations are followed. I understand that good pet owners do sometimes need to keep their dog tethered, which is why, exceptions are provided. such as for camping, hunting, agriculture, and as well as, of course, dog walking. This will not force people to have elaborate housing for their dogs. It's merely a basic, very basic standard of care to live, including the dog having room to stand and walk and having shade from the Texas sun and rain. This bill has brought support from law enforcement and 50 authors in the House of Representatives. There will be testimony from law enforcement as well as from an animal control group asking for the authority to take action against those breaking the law right in front of them, as well as save animals that are being severely mistreated. Mr. Chairman, members, thank you.
Very good. Any questions of Senator Lucio? Chair hears none. First, Senator Huffman.
Senator Lucio, I'm looking at your bill quickly, but just to make sure, you have all the exceptions for agriculture, people leaving their dog in the back of a truck for a short period, all the things you had put in last session, right?
Yes, ma'am.
To address many concerns of more of the rural folks, but also, I'm sure, some urban as well.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Senator Lucio.
Thank you kindly.
Very good. Jamie Cantrell? Mr. Cantrell, would like to testify? State your name and who you represent for a couple of minutes.
My name is Jamie Cantrell. I am the president of the Texas Animal Control Association, and TACA is the oldest and largest state organization in the country that represents thousands of animal welfare and public safety personnel from all over the state, and we support this bill. Currently, the law is unusable mainly due to the 24-hour notice that is required to be given to people that are violating the law. As we saw earlier this year during the freeze, and as we will see again in the coming months when the temperatures rise, 24 hours in Texas weather can be the difference between life and death. There are numerous other deficiencies with the current law that this bill also fixes, such as the defining of shelter and ensuring that animals are not kept in dangerous or unhealthy situations. And passing this law is especially important for the more rural communities, the counties and the smaller cities that lack the resources to adequately address it in their own ordinances. What this does is create a blueprint that owners can use to restrain their pets more humanely and sets a minimum standard of care that Texans overwhelmingly agree with. In closing, I'll tell you, this week is the National Animal Control Officer Appreciation Week. There's no better way for the members of this committee to show their appreciation and to give us the tool that we need to help prevent or help people be better pet owners and to help prevent animals from suffering unnecessarily. So TACA asks that you respectfully support this bill. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to try to provide answers for you.
Thank you. Any questions of the witness? Chair hears none. Thank you for being here. Carly Foster. You'll state your name and who you represent. Bill's in great shape.
Hi, I'm Lieutenant Foster with the Grapeland Police Department in East Texas. You want me to go ahead and begin?
Please, just ignore that. Technology, not, it wasn't me. It's thought about it though, but go ahead.
I'm a constituent for Senate District 3, and my department typically responds to approximately 25 to 50 animal calls per month. One of the most common calls are usually unsafely tethered animals. I support Senate Bill 474 because of the current code, Section 821D of the Health and Safety Code. It's not enforceable to in these situations. We currently rely on state law, and we really need this law updated. First, it lacks definition. In particular, current statutes does not define adequate shelter. An owner may claim that a piece of plywood leaned against a barn is adequate shelter, even though it's clearly not, and it will not protect them from the extreme elements in Texas. Second, under Section 821.079, penalty states an officer has probable cause shall provide an owner with a written statement of fact, essentially a warning, that a warning is in effect for 24 hours. There is no other situation requiring I give a violator written notice to correct the violation before I can take enforcement action. This warning effectively acts as a reset mechanism, allowing the situation to go on and on. Currently, penalties under 821D include Class C and a Class B after one Class C citation has been issued, but because 0 citations are issued, the penalties that are already exist in the statute aren't enforced. So no citations, no penalties. Dogs routinely die tied up out in extreme weather. We get calls about the same dogs over and over without any resolution. Another reason we need to reform this code is because of chains like this, which I have brought a bag if y'all choose to see, with chains that I have personally removed off of animals in my county. More recently, during the February ice storms, my department received 198 calls about dogs chained. If you remember, I said that we usually only get 25 to 50. During the February freeze, we had two dogs that froze to death subsequently because we could not enforce this law. We also removed 42 dogs prior to the storm. So,
What do you do when you get there? I mean, you take the dog with you or free the dog or what?
that depends on what happens at the end of the call. So if we have a dog that's chained with inadequate, in my opinion, inadequate shelter, I cannot remove that animal. State law requires that I give them 24 hours to correct the issue, and only then I can issue a Class C citation.
Oh.
So if we refer back to February 14th, the temperatures in Grapeland, Texas was -1 degrees outside, and I could not remove an animal for a 24-hour period, and as a result of that, two animals died.
What would happen if you did it anyway?
You can, under the penal code, seize animals due to animal cruelty.
Yeah.
But if a dog is provided
Hard
with
for me
food,
to
water, and
walk away
shelter,
at 1 degree weather.
it's very hard.
Yeah. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Let's see. I've lost my spot. Forgive me.
My fault.
No, it's okay. I need this tool for a small percentage of people who won't comply. I don't want to use this law to arrest people and take people to jail. It's to bring knowledge to the situation. I don't want people to be away from their animals, but inadequate shelter and improper restraint is the issue at hand.
Good job.
Thank you.
Don't let me cut you off, but I got about 30 witnesses.
I understand.
But you put a good face on it for us.
If anybody would like to see these chains later, I'd be more than welcome to
I'm
bring
going
them
to
to
take
your
your
office.
word for it. Thank you. Daryl Carter, bear with me, members. I got about 20 cards I've got to read into the record. Daryl Carter, Fort Bend County, in support. Stacy Kirby, Texas Humane Legislation Network is in support. Jimmy Rodriguez, San Antonio Police Officers in support. Shelby Bobashi, Self and Texas Humane Association is in support. Laurie Bowlen, Coalition for the Prevention of Animal Cruelty is in support. Bill Kelly, Mayor's Office, City of Houston is in support. Julie Wheeler, Travis County Commissioner's Court is in support. Ray Hunt, Houston Police Officers Union in support. John Wilkinson, Texas Municipal Police Officer Association in support. James Parnell, Dallas Police Officer Association in support. Jeff Cole, City of San Antonio in support. Hyer Williams, Dallas County District Attorney's Office is in support. Katie Jari, Texas Pets Alive in support. Lauren Loney, Texas Humane Society of the United States is in support. Ian Randolph, Self is in support. Frederick Frazier, Dallas Police Officer Association is in support. Cheryl Martinez, Texas Humane Legislative Network in support. Daniel Collins, El Paso County is in support. TJ Patterson, City of Fort Worth in support. Liz Carrasco in support. Tammy Ambre, City of Corpus Christi in support. Anyone else for or against Senate Bill 474? If not, public testimony is closed. Senator De Hinojosa moves that Senate Bill 474 be reported back to full Senate with a favorable recommendation.
Senator Whitmire,
Yes.
Senator Huffman, Senator Hinojosa, Senator Birdwell.
There being 4 ayes, no nays, Senate Bill 474 is supported back to full Senate with a favorable recommendation. Senator Lucio, you want to, was certified?
Yes, that should be fine, so it could move.
Senator Hinojosa moves it be certified for local and consent. Chair has none objection. Good job, Senator.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members.
Thanks for all the witnesses that signed up, and the officer, Lucio. We're getting down to Hinojosa.
Hinojosa wants to do this pending bill, that's the hypnosis bill.
I know, but I still gotta hear it.
We've already heard it, he wants to pull it up as pending.
Huh?
He wants to pull it up as pending business. This is the pending.
Okay. Senator Hinojosa on Senate Bill 281, pending business.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. You all recall Senate Bill 281 was the hypnosis bill, which we've been working on to refine the language. So what we did in the substitute, we have committee substitute, by the way, Mr. Chairman.
Chair lays out committee substitute for Senate Bill 281. Is there objection? Chair has none.
What it does, it cleans up the language and tightens the definition of investigative hypnosis without hindering law enforcement investigations. The definition is a technique that uses hypnosis to explore the memory of a witness to enhance the witness's recall of a legally relevant event, including descriptions of people, conversations, and the environment. Research and science have shown that hypnosis is unreliable and labeled junk science by others. Corroborating evidence of the crime is admissible. DPS and the Texas Rangers have stopped using hypnosis as new, more reliable, and effective techniques of questioning a victim or witness have been developed. Makes only statements made during the hypnosis session inadmissible and removes the prohibition of testimony made after the hypnosis session. And I think we rewrote this part I don't know how many times, Mr. Chairman, trying to refine it and make sure we focus and didn't tie up the hands of law enforcement in the event that there was any evidence that would lead to corroborating evidence of the crime.
Okay, Senator Huffman has a question.
Just a quick question, Senator Hinojosa, because I think you took some other language out. So just so I'm clear, if the statement is made during the hypnosis, during investigative hypnosis, as you defined it, which would be a specific episode, is that right, or a specific event? If it's made during that time period, it's not admissible. But if the statements made during investigative hypnosis lead to corroborating evidence, is the corroborating evidence still admissible?
Yes, it is.
Okay, but, okay.
And I can give you an example. Obviously, during the hypnosis session, if the witness or victim testifies and says, I remember it was a gun, 45 caliber, and it was thrown in the canal by so-and-so street, and they find it, yes, that can be used as evidence in the crime itself.
Okay. And if during the course of the hypnosis, the person recalls it, and then he states it during the hypnosis, it's not admissible. But if, because of the hypnotic episode, he remembers it and he talks about it afterwards, then it's admissible, right? If it
Correct.
recalls
You
it
find the corroborate, yes.
Okay. All right. I think I understand. Thank you. That's my only question.
Any others? You through?
Put it out.
I don't have the votes right now, so we'll leave it pending till we get a quorum. Senate Bill 576. Recognize Senator Hinojosa.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. Senate Bill 576 is designed to target human smugglers by creating a tougher smuggling statute in Texas. Unfortunately, we have seen an increase in human smuggling across the border, and I have heard firsthand the difficulties it brings to local officials dealing with human smuggling. Concerns have been raised that conduct currently punishable as a smuggling offense and the penalties prescribed for such an offense are inadequate. Currently, it's difficult to prove pecuniary interest because the smuggled persons often do not want to testify against their guide. This may be due to promises of future guide services or threat against the smuggled persons or their families. Also, the logistics of keeping a smuggled person in custody long enough to testify against a smuggler is a huge problem. Smugglers who take persons across the vast expanses of agricultural land in South Texas often do so with no care for their welfare. This is also a response to the deaths of hundreds of immigrants over the last decade when attempting to traverse and cross large areas of land. Senate Bill 576 seeks to strengthen smuggling law by revising the conduct constituting a smuggling of persons offense and enhancing the penalty for such an offense under certain circumstances. This bill is aimed at those who are taking advantage of other vulnerable people. And because immigration is a federal responsibility, Senate Bill 576 is not an immigration bill and does not affect immigrants themselves. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Very good. John Hubert? State your name, who you represent.
Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. My name is John Hubert. I'm the District Attorney for Clayburgh and Kennedy Counties, and I'm for the bill.
You don't have a current statute that would be enforceable?
No, sir. As written, it's not really enforceable. And I have some prepared comments. If you want, I can go through and kind of explain, and then I can answer any questions.
Yeah, you can. I was just curious. The senator did a great job of laying it out, but I'm just wondering why they're not being prosecuted now. Certainly federal law?
The problem is proving pecuniary. There's two reasons. One, there's nothing that we can prosecute for guiding across agricultural lands. Two of our most dangerous behaviors are evading arrest in a vehicle and guiding across agricultural lands. That's where we lose the most people. And the number I like to cite is 2012.
But you do prosecute for that, do you know?
We can't. I mean, Class A misdemeanor criminal trespass, and then if you evade from a border patrol, it isn't against state law. Has to be against a peace officer. This would change that. This would change. They're like FBIs are special investigators. The Border Patrol are special investigators too, but they are carved out and they're limited to POEs, ports of entry, and permanent locations. So they can't stop for felonies outside of those areas. If they're chasing somebody and somebody's running away and they've got illegals in the back, that is incredibly dangerous. We see a lot of rollovers. Sure. We see, but we can't prosecute them for it.
This will give you the tool?
This would give us a tool, yes, sir.
Okay. Sounds good. Don't let me take away from your prepared remarks, but that's kind of the highlights we were looking for.
Yes, sir. The approach we're using now is not working. It's led to literally hundreds of deaths over the past 4 years and an increase of cartel involvement. The myth that ag lands are safe has been debunked by the sheer numbers of deaths involved.
You think cartel will pay attention to this statute?
I think cartel will figure out a better way to do it and still earn the money that's safer. They're not afraid of us. They just want to make money.
No, I got that. That's what I'm saying. This is a great statute, well intended. I just wonder the net effect. But I guess we got to keep trying.
Yes, sir. I refuse to give up. It's kind of like, you know.
All right.
Can I continue or?
Yeah, you can. Go ahead. But I don't need all the information you're bringing. Just emphasize your high points.
There are three main things. First, we need to be able to have special investigators be able to stop for felony arrests outside. Second, we need to eliminate the pecuniary interest because having an immigrant testify against somebody is dangerous. They know where their families are, especially with the cartels. They have far reaches. And if we have them testify, we have to keep them in custody until that hearing comes up. That sounds bad to me. I don't want to keep him in custody. He's an immigrant. You know, there's immigration processes. And then also, like the 11-year-old you saw on the news the other day, walking down the street, basically left to die because he couldn't keep up. He's not going to know if somebody paid to take him over or not.
Sure.
The problem we're having is I was speaking with Sheriff Martinez, who will testify later, but in 2012, there were so many bodies found out in Brooks County, 128 bodies found in Brooks County alone. That's just one county in Texas. There were so many that they had to fire people from the county, and all the public officials took a 10% pay decrease just so they could bury them. This is a humanitarian crisis caused by criminals. It's not something like a snowstorm that comes in that we can address some other way. This is something that we have the opportunity to do. People will say, well, how about this or about that? The approach we're using now isn't working. If it worked, we wouldn't have so many dead people.
Sure. Okay, we're going to give you a tool. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Jimmy Rodriguez, San Antonio Legislative Police Officer Association in support. Nikki Presley, Texas Public Policy Foundation is in support. Harold Stone, Texas Farm Bureau in support. Ray Hunt, Houston Police Officers Union in support. James Parnell, Dallas Police Officers in support. Carly Garcia, 79th Judicial District Attorney's Office in support. Benny Martinez, Brooks County Sheriff. Do you care to testify, sir?
Yes, sir.
You got it.
Thank you.
What's a town in Brooks County? Help me. What's your major city?
Alfurias.
Alfurias, sir. Falfurrias.
Yeah. Got it. State your name and who you represent.
Yes, sir. Urbino Benny Martinez, Brooks County Sheriff. As far as smuggling is concerned, sir, that's a daily issue for us. What it does, they had various smuggling issues, whether it's trucks, conveyances, or walking people across through the brush, whichever it takes for these folks to get them through. And it was mentioned before, like, the county at one time had to, from 2009, 2012, we paid for a lot of the autopsies, et cetera. We had, I think, $680,000 in change. We have requested that from the federal government. It's still a work in progress. So that takes a while. But this bill will definitely help us, at least another tool. Any tools that we can get will really help us on the other side, on the prosecution side.
How many deputies you have?
5, sir.
5?
Yes, sir.
Wow. Pretty big job for 6 of you, huh?
944 square miles, yes, sir.
Wow. Senator Huffman?
A couple of questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Sheriff, are you seeing a greater influx of people coming across the border in your area down there?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Are the numbers like more than you've seen before personally, or how are y'all dealing with it?
Yes, ma'am. The numbers are like we saw in between 2009, 2012, after the resources applied by the federal government and the state police. It minimized it when they secure that border. Now that the influx come in, most of those are reassigned to do different duties, so the borders it's open, so they're coming through.
So Border Patrol is having to deal with processing maybe some of the children or the families and so forth. To
Absolutely,
make sure
ma'am.
they're
Yes.
handled appropriately under the law, of course, and humanely, of course. And so is that opening, do you feel like the cartels are getting more of a, being able to smuggle people illegally like this, not necessarily the family units, but others, and also take drugs across?
That's correct, ma'am. That's been
Yeah.
on an increase, and also an increase has been that they're cutting locks and driving through private ranches now.
Okay, so the ranchers are feeling this as well on personal,
Yes.
private property
Yes,
within
ma'am.
your county?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I also had one of my constituents that actually got pushed by a smuggler because he kind of took the wrong turn and ended up at the residence. So he pushed him, and I don't think that's acceptable.
Of course not, yeah, so nobody should.
So that's one of those issues we're having. I mean, we just can't have that they live out there in 50,000 acre ranches, which is their backyard, but they still got to have their privacy.
Yes, it's their land, of course.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for being here, and thanks for all you do to protect your county, and you have a great senator here. Is he one of you represent him, right? Yeah, we have a great senator.
He is.
We love working with Senator Hinojosa, and he's very concerned about your issues, as we all are.
Thank you.
So thank you for what you do.
How long you been sheriff?
Year and a half, sir.
Long time?
A year and a half. I've been in law enforcement for 41 years.
But you're relatively new to sheriff, year and a half?
Yes, sir.
All right, well, be safe out there.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Frederick Frazier, Dallas Police Officer Association in support. John Hubert, we've heard from. Anyone else? Fatina Martinez with Maldev is in opposition. Come forward.
Senator, I may have, my name is Carlos Garcia. I'm the district attorney for Jim Wells in Brooks County, the 79th Judicial District. I may have mismarked. I thought I had marked that I would
Oh, I
testify.
know. Go ahead, state your name and who you
But,
represent.
Carlos Omar Garcia, I represent the district attorney's office. I am the district attorney for the 79th Judicial District.
Good for you.
That covers Jim Wells and Brooks counties. And a lot of the remarks have already been made. I just offer myself as any
Good.
resource to answer any
I
questions.
think we
that
understand
may
it. I think we understand your senator's addressing it, and he has our support, so good luck, be safe.
Thank you.
Be interesting to see in a couple of years what difference it made.
Thank you
Sound
very
like
much.
y'all, sound like to me like y'all are kind of outnumbered.
Very much so.
All right, be safe.
Thank you for being here.
Patina Menendez wants to be shown in opposition, no testimony. Matt Simpson, ACLU of Texas, in opposition, no testimony. Anyone else present like to testify for Senate Bill 546? Not, public testimony is closed. Good job, Senator. Good luck. Let's get down to, Miles is not here. It's a slight problem.
I think he's on his way.
Yeah, we'll do it later. Let's get mine out of the way. No, I don't know. Let me get organized. Why don't we, so Brian can leave, why don't we do Brian's on the
1395.
13th?
Okay, Chair lays out Senate Bill 1395, recognizes Senator Whitmire, the author.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. One of the frequent calls I get, besides from inmate families and crime victims groups, is from correction officers. We have a very vast system, mostly located in rural Texas, and quite often the correction officers do not feel they have a process to express their grievances. In talking with them, the ones I deal with that call me with complaints, we deal with the administration. I think Brian Collier does a good job of responding and getting through a lot of the issues, but to try to professionalize the TDCJ employees, we continue to give some benefit increases, but still there's a morale issue from the ones I've spoken to, and their labor representatives would like to have a process of arbitration, and it would establish policies set up by the board to hopefully be a third party to involve themselves in binding arbitration, as I would suggest many of the witness cards that we've heard from Ray Hunt, Frederick, and other large agencies allow. I understand this is a concept that we're going to have to present to the full body, but at this time, I would ask for consideration, Madam Chair, for allowing these hard-working employees that expose themselves to the dangers of prison work each and every day to have a system of arbitration for some of their employment-related grievances. There's witnesses that can do probably a better job than me in putting a face on this, but this would ask the Board of Criminal Justice to establish professional standards and employment oversight, and included in arbitration. So I yield at this time to any questions and call the witnesses.
Any questions at this point? Okay, we'll open public testimony on Senate Bill 1395. We'll call up Sarah Ruziska, and I'm sorry if I messed up your name.
Hello. My name is Sarah Rizika.
I am on the executive board of AFSCME Texas Corrections Local 3920 out of Gatesville, and I'm speaking in favor of the bill. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today. I'm a CO4 and I've worked for 4 years for TDCJ. I work at the Mountain View unit in Gatesville, which is a max security women's unit that includes death row and protective custody. I also have 2 kids, 12 and 8 years old at home, and I'm proud to tell them that I am an officer serving the state of Texas. As you know, this year has been difficult for staff. COVID has made an already dangerous job even more dangerous. Early in the pandemic, I contracted COVID and have had to quarantine due to exposure more than once since then. Increasing turnover and understaffing on top of COVID-related absences is stretching officers and other staff thin. We have been doing our best to keep ourselves and each other and the inmates in our care safe, but it is difficult and morale has suffered this year. In order to reduce turnover, we need to make TDCJ the best place possible to go to work. We all know the job will always be dangerous. That's what we signed up for. But staff should be more concerned about keeping officers and inmates safe rather than worrying about job security. This bill would give officers peace of mind knowing that they will be afforded real due process in disciplinary cases. We often hear from staff that they don't want to challenge a disciplinary or termination because they don't think that they will get a fair shake and that the chain of command will just back each other up. Whether that is true in every case or not, that perception means that good staff are being disciplined or let go for reasons they shouldn't be, and the current system isn't working to stop that. This drives down morale and makes it harder to keep good staff. This creates one more spot we have to fill and one more inexperienced new hire we have to train. It's unfair to the officers that were let go or left, and it's unfair to the staff that have to pick up the slack. Staff are also concerned.
Go ahead and wrap it up.
Okay. Sorry. We're also concerned that rocking the boat and challenging a disciplinary action that supervisors might increase our punishment. Letting staff appeal to a neutral third party would help alleviate that concern and make the system effective and more fair. This bill would give officers real due process for issues at work and give us peace of mind that the job me and my kids rely on is secure. We take pride in what we do, and through pandemics and snowstorms and hurricanes, we need to do all we can to make people want to come to TDCJ and stay at TDCJ. Greater due process and fair disciplinary system will go a long way to achieve that goal. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak with you today. I hope you will all support this bill.
All right, thank you for being here.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Of course.
So you're in Gainesville?
I'm in Gatesville, yes, sir.
Gatesville.
Yes, sir.
How many members would AFSCME have? How many of your coworkers would be members? And you don't have to have the number. I'm just saying, is there much activity?
It's a substantial amount, yes, sir.
Because it's been my experience in the past, not enough officers were members, so you kind of dilute your influence if you're not better organized and heavy, more recruiting. And
Yes,
I
sir.
mean, you got staff here that contacts us, does a great job, your union officials, but I've spoken to groups before. If you don't intensify your membership, you're probably never going to get the true results you're looking for. So,
Yes, sir, I agree.
all right, thank you. Be safe.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jeff Ornsby?
Good morning. My name is Jeff Hornsby. I'm the Executive Director of AFSCME Texas Corrections, and I'm in favor of Senate Bill 1395. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today, and thank you, Chairman, for filing this bill for us. I'm a retired correctional officer with 3 years of state service and 25 years of Federal Bureau of Prison service. AFSCME Texas Corrections is an organization made up of thousands of active TDCJ employees who work under every job title in every unit, from correctional officers to food service workers, from substance abuse counselors to maintenance workers. Our goal is to advocate for better pay, benefits, facilities, and working conditions so we can recruit and retain the best staff and our members to do their jobs well and safely. Many of you represent a significant number of TDCJ employees and units and we know you are acutely aware of the issues facing the agency and the employees. We appreciate your support you have given TDCJ in the past. As you know, TDCJ is facing a historically high turnover and vacancy rates with more than 4,000 empty positions and a turnover rate of nearly 30%. With the secure pension fund, increased salaries are key to recruiting and retaining quality staff. In a recent survey by the state auditor, voluntary exiting staff cite poor working conditions / environment as a primary factor for their separation. This year, especially, staff have been asked to do more with less. Investment in professional development, along with a fair, equitable, and efficient grievance process, is one part of addressing this issue and will improve staff retention. This bill will help do just that. First, we strongly support the provisions in the bill that will allow for a third-party review of grievances. Currently, staff who are issued a disciplinary action or terminated can only appeal those actions within the TDCJ chain of command. This system opens the door for both real and perceived favoritism, both of which are harmful to the agency and morale. This system discourages employees from filing grievances or appealing disciplinary actions because regardless of the strength of their case, they believe they are unlikely to prevail and fear that supervisors will retaliate for increased punishment. Can we continue? All right. This new process will give employees the security of knowing that TDCJ rules will be applied fairly and consistently across the agency. Additionally, it will help TDCJ reach final decisions without potential litigation and will reduce tension between staff and management, as employees will know that final determination was reached in a fair and transparent manner, no matter what the outcome. We also support the creation of the committee to review professional development, recruitment, and retention policies, as well as grievance procedures. We know TDCJ is already on many of these issues, but this will codify and bolster TDCJ's current efforts. It will also ensure the legislature can play an active role in the process and that these policies are working as intended and can be updated as needed. Often the most effective way to reduce turnover and vacancies are expensive, and many of you are very familiar with that. This bill is one way to help address those issues. Support the hardworking staff at TDCJ and make the state of Texas a better place to work without a large price tag. Thank you, and we look forward to working with you on this bill.
Thank you very much for being here, sir. Thanks for your input. Thank you.
And thanks for being here. We've got some work to do, but we're certainly, we'll continue to make this an issue.
Yes, sir. And I can, I know Ms. Ruzicka, Officer Ruzicka, you asked her how many members and stuff we had. Before COVID, we were pushing close to 7,000. We were going by over 1,000 members a year. But the turnover rate, we signed up.
I understand.
Yeah, it's.
I was just saying, as a friend, there's strength in numbers, and you understand that as well, or probably better than I do. So keep up the good work, and we'll continue to be a voice for the workers, because I know they do a real difficult job in difficult conditions.
Yes, sir. It's a tough job. It's a very tough job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then we have Ray Hunt signed up in support of the bill, not wishing to testify. Chris Jones from Cleat in support without wishing to testify. James Purnell, Dallas Police in support. Frederick Frazier, Dallas Police in support, not wishing to testify. And then we have a resource witness, Brian Collier. Mr. Collier, do you mind if I ask you a couple of questions? I'm just curious about a couple of things. Just so I'm clear, how many employees does TDCJ have overall, approximately?
Brian Collier, TDCJ Executive Director. Good morning.
Good morning.
Overall, about 33,000 employees.
Yeah.
About 20,000 correctional officer positions are occupied right now with about 4,300 vacancies.
Okay, and of that percentage, do you know how many are members of one of the unions, or do you
The number
keep
I was
that
thinking is
number,
around
or-
4,000, but I will double check that.
That's
and
about, I
provide
think, what that gentleman just said, so that sounds like he said, I guess they're coming and going a little bit with the turnover and COVID and so much. So it's a small, I'm not going to say small percentage, but a lower percentage number of your full number of employees, correct? Yeah. And you have a disciplinary process in place, grievance and disciplinary, do you not?
Yes, ma'am. We
Just
have a
briefly
three-step-
tell me what that is. You don't have to go into great detail because I know we're trying to move on.
Three-step grievance process in place now. The third step is actually a division director level. So it would have to be a division director level or higher, which would be the deputy executive director or myself. We also have independent mediation we do if you are dismissed. So if you're terminated, then we give every employee the opportunity to go to independent mediation.
Okay, so you have a mediation, but it's a voluntary, I guess.
Yes, ma'am.
They'd want to do that.
Correct.
Yes. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Right. And then what's the third?
That would be we have 3 full steps of the grievance, so first, second, and third
Third.
step. There's roughly about 50 third-step grievances a year, so the volume's not really high at that
Okay.
level. Obviously, more at the first and second level, and then we have about 400 mediations that we do a year.
Okay. And do you have those that are problematic and so forth, do you feel like there's a high level of command, like yourself or someone that you, or answers to you, actually looks at these
Yes, ma'am.
issues?
And then we all obviously respond to concerns that we have from any employee.
Yeah.
I mean, our employees do tremendous work, and we respect that 110%. So any concern that any of us get, we dig into. I personally do, and I know our division directors do as well.
Okay. And as far as binding arbitration, you may not know the answer to this, I don't know. Do you know of any state agency that requires binding arbitration with?
Not at the state level. We checked into that, but did not identify anyone.
There's no one. I didn't think so. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
That's quick.
Senator Whitmire?
Who handles the mediation?
It's actually, we have a contract. We have contracted, so there's different mediators that perform that role, but we have a contract for mediation services for the entire state.
Yeah. And obviously, you understand that process, the employees often feel like it's being controlled by TDCJ.
Certainly can understand, because it's a TDCJ representative that's there in the mediation with
Sure.
the mediator, and the employee's representative, so I can understand that, yes, sir. Shouldn't be our intent, that's certainly not the way I look at it.
And you know,
I can
you and I
understand.
work regularly together and on numerous, not a lot of incidents, but occasionally I will call you about a personnel matter. The young man in Huntsville that was sent home after a drug dog, I think, sniffed his car. You got into the middle of it, resolved it satisfactorily. But what does worry me, and the reason I would support a process as proposed, is the cases that don't come before me or you.
Yes, sir.
A huge organization. I'm not surprised that our employee groups, law enforcement out of Dallas, Houston, and others who have this tool or this benefit are in support because they know it works well. So I guess what I'm going to close and ask you to, if we don't have this piece of legislation, it's coming to me because of concerns about turnover, grievance process, and not everyone is fair-minded as you.
Yes, sir.
So I hope you'll double down on allowing your employees to have access to a process that you currently use that is user-friendly for these employees.
Yes, sir. I can assure you, regardless of the bill, I'll take a deep look at all those processes again. We're looking at retention as well, and we're trying to retool to what we do internally, because I recognize some of that's us, and we need to address that, and I'll be happy to look at that as well.
And I think you and I visited this morning, you are about 4,300 positions vacant.
Correctional officer vacancies, yes, sir.
So I think that could be a contributor. If you had a process that they could promote, you might have ASME and others helping you do some recruiting if they had some talking points.
Yes, sir.
Other than you're going to be in a very dangerous environment. So I just would urge you as the employer to review your practices and hold your administration accountable if you find them to be a little less than acceptable to complaints and grievances.
Yes, sir.
But I know you have a very tough job because you got a tough population, and COVID has presented numerous challenges for you. So thanks for being here, and be safe, and tell all your employees help's on the way.
Yes, sir.
Don't pay them near enough.
No, sir.
Finance, I know, is giving a bump to some of your more
Yes, sir, and we're greatly appreciative of
Max,
that.
and I know Senator Huffman, Nelson, others were involved in that process. In fact, Senator Huffman handled the working group. So we're all in this together. Thank you. But you do have employees out there that think there could be improvements. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you. Thanks for being here, Brian. All right. Anyone else want to testify on or against Bill 1395? We'll close public testimony and leave that pending. Senator Whitmire, you're recognized on Senate Bill 223.
Yes, ma'am.
You're recognized.
Thank you,
Yes.
Madam Chair. I have a committee substitute that I would lay out.
Senator Whitmire sends out the committee substitute, Senate Bill 2022-23, you recognize on the committee sub.
The committee substitute makes the bill from the council draft and clarifies that reality TV shows not include journalists reporting on matter of public concern. Members, as I sat in Houston and read about some of the fiascos with the Williamson County Sheriff, it was so well documented that it would appear that they would change their best practices, actually become worse practices, when they would have a reality show, cameras in the car with them. They would actually go to court in one instance and see there's the person that we want, there's a warrant for, and they would wait till that evening to act upon that warrant instead of doing it in a professional manner while the person was at the court. The worst example and the tragedy that would support this legislation is Javier Ambler was chased from Williamson County over not dimming his lights and chased into Travis County, where the encounter led to his death. There's been indictments over that incident, but nothing can bring back Javier Ambler's life. I would strongly say the facts would show that when this TV camera, a private sector reality show program was in the car, it impacted the behavior of the officers, often leading to unprofessional conduct. And Mr. Ambler's case, and in fact, it's so bad a situation that the investigators wanted to see the cameras, and the reality show said, no, they're not public information, they're not available, they've actually been destroyed. So I believe, and working very closely with law enforcement across the state, that when you're doing the public sensitive business and you're given that kind of authority, there's just not a good time for reality TV shows to be produced. I don't know who's coming for as witnesses. I will work on language. It's been brought to our attention that Parks and Wildlife has a game warden show that might include cameras and documentation for a public TV show carried out by Parks and Wildlife. I think that's a reasonable concern. A bill is moving through the House, but I would sit in Houston and read the news stories and be in contact with, actually talk to the Rangers about could they do something about this practice. And I do think the system is holding the sheriff and the deputies accountable, but I think once for all, we need to get the reality TV shows out of the backseat of law enforcement patrol. Answer any questions.
Senator Webb, just a couple of questions. So you said you're working on the law, Parks and Wildlife one. What about someone who was like trying to film more of a documentary or some type of investigative piece? So I know do you see a difference of that? I'm just curious.
Well, that would concern me, but I still believe in local control, Madam Chair, that if the sheriff or law enforcement had a authentic documentation by university, others, I would be open to that. I do think, though, to minimize even that documentary, quite frankly, could influence the behavior of anyone that they're covering. I just think when an officer's, and I'm open to your question.
I'm just curious,
Yeah,
because I'm sitting here thinking about it. To me, it's sort of like they're cutting off away from.
Obviously, I don't have to explain how inflammatory I think the commercial aspect of it is.
I understand.
But I'll
Thinking out.
I'll think through a documentary by the University of Texas. But even then, I just think human nature is such that if you've got the camera running, as you well know, that's been always the issue of cameras in a courtroom.
Mm-hmm.
It will change conduct. I, for a fact, know it's changed some conduct on the Senate and House floors since I've been here. So I just think the police
Probably
work.
do the best.
Ma'am?
Probably to the better.
Sure makes the speeches longer.
Well,
But body cameras have made a difference. Cameras, when they're rolling, just hold people accountable. But in this instance, it's so egregious that you could look and see when the reality show commercial cameras started rolling, officers look for the occasion to intervene, and quite often, I think, overreacted. And like I said, I can't I can't express the heartache of Mr. Ambler's death over not dimming his lights. I would just like to believe that officers would use better judgment than start a chase, and why he panicked and ran we'll never know, because he's not here to talk about it. But if the TV cameras on a reality show that they need some footage for their next shows were not rolling, I'm not sure dimming a light would be the best use of those officers' time. So I'll visit with the stakeholders and my staff about any potential documentary.
Okay.
Who's chairing this damn committee now? Senator Nichols, show him present.
Yeah, Senator Nichols, we're just going to show you present, so thank you. And
I'm on the camera.
he's on live.
Good.
We'll open public testimony on Senate Bill 223, and I'm going to have several cards I'll read into the record. Jimmy Rodriguez, San Antonio Police Officers Association in support. Bill Kelly, Mayor's Office, City of Houston in support. Julie Wheeler, Travis County Commissioners Board in support. Ray Hunt, Houston Police Officers Union in support. John Wilkerson, Texas Municipal Police Association in support. Anthony Nella, Houston Police Retired Association in support. Chris Jones, Fleet in support.
I got it.
Thomas Parkinson, representing himself in support. James Parnell, Dallas PD in support. Woodrow Goodson, Wichita County Judge in support. All the way from Wichita. It's hard to stick together. Jim Allison, County Judges and Commissioners Association in support. Frederick Fraser, Dallas PD in support. Joshua Houston, Texas Impact in support. Then we have a card from David Sinclair, Game Warden Peace Officers Association, neutral on the bill, no testimony. And then we'll call up Paul Jensen from the Texas Motion Picture Alliance. Come on up, Mr. Jensen. You're recognized, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Humbling, excuse me, while I put on my glasses.
That's okay. I know the feeling.
Chairman Whitmire, Vice Chairwoman Huffman, members of the committee, thanks for the opportunity to speak with you today. I'm Paul Jensen. I'm the Executive Director of the Texas Motion Picture Alliance. I'm representing my organization, and I'm very respectfully providing opposing testimony to Senate Bill 223. TXMPA represents Texas media professionals, Texas media production, film, television, video games, animation, digital media, and commercials. And yes, some of our members do in fact work in reality and unscripted television. By no means are we advocating the violent sensationalism of law enforcement operating in the line of duty, all for the sake of entertainment. But we ask that this committee consider potential unintended consequences of this proposed legislation. How is Senate Bill 223 defining reality television? Who gets to interpret that, and who gets to make the ultimate decision? Does this apply to a docuseries like America's Most Wanted, which frequently interviews law enforcement working in the line of duty on ongoing investigations? This program recently announced that cooperation between law enforcement and the viewing public, facilitated by that very show, had resulted in the apprehension of over 1,100 fugitives and returned 43 missing children to their families. Lone Star Law, as we mentioned here, is an unscripted television show enjoying its 8th season on the Animal Planet. This show, which visits communities all across our state, captures Texas game wardens as they investigate poaching cases, save flash flood victims, and rescued injured wildlife. Is the intent to prohibit programming that provides the audience a comprehensive look at Texas game wardens as they protect over 250,000 square miles of our Lone Star state. These are just a few of the examples, to include a potential documentary from UT of the potential unintended consequences that may occur with this legislation that I can cram into 2 minutes. And due to our concerns with this inadvertent overreach, we are very, very respectfully opposing Senate Bill 223.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
I don't know about the unintended consequences, but I do know about the intended consequences, is to stop the abuses that were carried on by the sheriff of Williamson County. And I just wonder, where was your organization when that was being so well documented by local press? I mean, you know, we bring laws forward because we're trying to fix a problem, and you'd have had to have been not paying attention to the circumstances of Mr. Ambler's tragedy and numerous other instances. And, you know, the voters spoke, so I wonder where your industry was.
Yes, sure. I mean, the situation in Williamson County was absolutely tragic. And I think it's important to note that that dialogue resulted in the cancellation of Cops, which was on for, it was a commercial success, but it was on for 33 seasons. You know, and this particular reality TV show, Live PD, was canceled by Paramount Network. So the dialogue that came from that spurred some action based on the content creators that you're talking about.
Yeah, from a commercial standpoint, but we've got a dead man and his family suffering forever because no one said you're abusing whatever industry that you're representing today. So that's what we're trying to prevent. And I think we'll work through some of the examples that you've discussed, but it was totally out of control, I think, by anyone's objective view.
Yes, sir. And you know, that Sheriff County is afforded due process, but it looks like you know, the arrest and the investigation are gonna result in justice ultimately prevailing.
You don't think there is a likelihood when you have a camera in the car and you're looking for action shots on a slow night, you try to create some action? I mean, I've ridden with officers, and I know for a fact when I'm in the car, they want to show me some police work. And I don't know that they would react the same way if I wasn't in there.
I think I would agree that cameras affect personality, right?
Sure.
And there's advantages and disadvantages
Sure.
on both of that. I mean, when we have cameras, that provides transparency
Sure.
at the end of the day.
Very good. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. All right. Any other questions? Thank you, sir. Anyone else who wants to testify on for or against Senate Bill 223? We'll close public testimony.
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
I'm going to leave that pending out
Okay.
of respect for Representative Tallarico, who's got the companion bill in the House. She represents the area that a lot of these transgressions occurred in, and
Okay.
I'm going to wait for the House bill to get here.
Yes, sir.
Let me get to one other bill. Senator Miles on Senate Bill 503.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members. Thank you for allowing me to opportunity to Senate Bill 503. There is a committee substitute, Mr. Chairman.
Chair lays out committee substitute for Senate Bill 503. If there are objections to adoption, chair is none.
As filed, Senate Bill 503 only applies to counties or municipalities that do not require a person to obtain a permit to operate a boarding home. The committee substitute applies SB 503 to all counties and cities in the state of Texas. The committee substitute for SB 503 amends the Health and Safety Code to create a Class A misdemeanor offense for people who rent a building used as a boarding home and fails to report abuse to the Department of Family Protective Services. Mr. Chairman, Vice Chairman, the Houston delegation, we know that we, in the interim, we had a big story that broke in Houston area, Harris County area, members, that we found 35 individuals in a boarding home that was unlicensed, with one restroom, that were being abused. Their Social Security checks were being taken, all of their benefits being taken. Their medication was being taken and stolen back on the streets. These boarding homes and assisted living facilities houses many vulnerable people who can become victims of an abuse or mistreatment. We seek to protect the residents in the boarding homes by requiring a person who owns the building that houses these residents to report abuse. And the reason we're focusing this particular bill, 503, and we have a series of bills as it relates to rogue boarding homes. But this one, 503, is focused on the property owner because in our investigation, in HPD's investigation, they uncovered that this particular individual who was running the facility not only was that facility owned by an individual family, but that individual family owned 3 of the properties that he was operating out of, and had visited 2 of the properties and realized what was going on and doubled the rent. Did not report it, Mr. Chairman. He just doubled the rent. So we weren't quite sure, and HPD is not quite sure if the property owner is involved or not. So this bill seeks to put a fine and make it criminal for the property owner once they've been identified as knowing that their home is being, their property is being used as a rogue boarding house, and that the individuals are going through abuse.
Okay.
To make it a criminal offense. So I want to thank you for allowing me this opportunity to lay out this bill.
No problem.
And it should help protect our most vulnerable citizens all across the state of Texas, Mr. Chairman. And I
Very
thank you.
good. Bill Kelly, City of Houston. You want to testify? State your name, who you represent, Bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Bill Kelly. I'm the Director of Government Relations for Houston Mayor Sylvester Turner, and thank you very much for being here, and thank you to Senator Miles for filing this bill. In 2013, the City of Houston had its own ordinance with regards to boarding homes. We found that the criminal activity of elder neglect was something within our community, particularly as it also affected a number of our individuals that were living in these homes with mental disabilities, and again, people taking advantage of the financial support that a number of these individuals would receive. I believe it was less than a week from the incident in Senator Miles' district where he contacted us to be able to see what the City of Houston had done, and what our boarding home advocates within our mental health division and HPD basically said is because of the good enforcement that we have within the city, a number of these bad operators had moved out into the county. That's why I plead with you. This is very good legislation that will affect not only and recognize the good legislation that a number of munis and counties, particularly within our City of Houston, have done on boarding homes, but really be able to look at it more holistically for when those operators could move to avoid regulation.
So you're telling me there is a city ordinance?
Yes, sir.
Then why aren't you doing something about the bad circumstances he just described?
Sir, because as Senator Miles and us got together, it's outside the city's jurisdiction, and frankly, that's the reason we need this legislation is our ordinance.
Okay,
couldn't
I didn't
affect
It only
it.
covers the city, Mr. Chairman.
And you know why they're in these
Unincorporated areas.
unfortunate circumstances, because we don't have adequate housing for the mental health concerns. So anyway, thank you for being here. We'll give you a tool. Ray Hunt, Houston Police Officers Union in support. Andrew Reed, Harris County Commissioners Court in support. Adam Haynes, Conference of Urban Counties in support. James Parnell, Dallas Police Officers Association in support. Thomas Parkinson. Did Thomas Parkinson show up? Our friend from San Antonio. He got an opinion on every bill. Somebody needs to tell him to stand up and be recognized. Paige Williams, Dallas County District Attorney's Office in support. Colin Craig, Houston Police Officers Association, Houston Police Department, in support. Kaz Wold, Department of Public Family and Protective Services is a resource. Anyone else for or against Senate Bill 503? If not, public testimony is closed.
Mr. Chairman, if I might add, I know there was some concern about probation and parolees going to these homes. I can't imagine, sir, that any parole officer or probation officer are referring parolees or probation or parole persons to these facilities. These are mostly mentally ill, homeless.
It's sad, as I pointed out, that they don't have proper housing, and I
Right.
think we need to be cognizant of that there's a need there.
And Senator,
Just reading, people are able to take advantage of them, but
I also think the members should know these people were locked in.
locked in.
Locked in with cameras where the owners were sitting at their
Yeah.
homes watching to make sure.
How do they pay them? I guess from their SSI?
They collect, when they go to those homes, they take up their SSI,
Oh, yeah.
and they take up all their social
Yeah.
service funds.
Very
that they
good.
get, and their medication, sir.
Very good. Good bill. Senator Huffman moves that Senate Bill 503 by Miles be referred back to the full Senate with a favorable recommendation.
Senator Whitmire,
Yes.
Senator Huffman, Senator Hinojosa, Senator Nichols, Senator Miles.
All right.
There being 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ayes, no nays, Senate Bill 503 is reported back to full Senate with a favorable recommendation. You and Senator Hinojosa moves it be certified for local and consent. Is there objection? Chair has done so granted. Members, and that pretty much takes care of our agenda, except we've got some pending business. Senator Hinojosa, you have your votes on your smuggling.
Yes, sir.
Senator Huffman moves that Senate Bill 576 by Hinojosa be reported back to full Senate with a favorable recommendation. Yes, yes.
Senator Whitmire, Senator Huffman.
Aye.
Senator Hinojosa.
Aye.
Senator Nichols. Senator Miles.
Being 5 ayes, no nays, Senate Bill 576 reported back to full Senate with a favorable recommendation. Senator Hinojosa moves it be certified for local and consent. Is there objection? Chair has done so granted. You okay on the hypnosis?
As, it needs to go to the floor.
Hmm?
It needs to go to the floor.
Sure. Senator Miles moves that committee substitute for Senate Bill 281 be reported back to full Senate with a favorable recommendation.
Senator Whitmire.
Aye.
Senator Huffman. Senator Nichols. Senator Hinojosa.
Aye.
Senator Miles.
Being 5 ayes, no nays, committee substitute for Senate Bill 281 be reported back to full Senate with a favorable recommendation. Senator Miles moves that committee substitute for Senate Bill 181 by Johnson be reported back to full Senate with a favorable recommendation. Yeah, misdemeanor, yeah.
Senator Whitmire. Senator Huffman.
Aye.
Senator Hinojosa.
Aye.
Senator Nichols. Senator Miles.
5 ayes, no nays, committee substitute for Senate Bill 181 reported back to full Senate with a favorable recommendation.
You need to do the SCR
Yeah,
that
sure.
went with it.
Anything else?
You need to do the SCR that went with it.
Senator Miles moves that the SCR that is the companion to that be reported back to full Senate with a favorable recommendation.
Wait just a second, I'm not sure. I need to look at that one.
Okay, we'll
I
leave
mean, I
that
can look
then.
at it real fast, but I don't remember it. Which one is it? SCR one.
Yeah, we'll leave that pending. Anything else come before the committee? If not,
The ones that said that they have to change.
you want to turn in a vote sheet?
No.
Okay, fine. Committee stands recess.
I'm okay, whoops. I'm
Whoop,
okay with
just a
SCR
second.
one.
Back
Yeah,
up.
I just wanted to make sure what it did. Sorry.
So you're
I
okay?
hate to hold up this bill another week, yeah.
Yeah. Senator Miles moves that SCR 1 by Johnson be reported back to full Senate with a favorable recommendation. You got it.
Senator Whitmire.
Aye.
Senator Huffman. Senator Hinojosa. Senator Nichols. Senator Miles.
5 ayes, no nays, SCR 1 is reported back to full Senate with a favorable recommendation. Committee stands recess. Thank you, members.